Hey guys, it's Ben here. I hope you're having a great day. Today I wanted to talk to you about my experience mixing on an SSL desk that we have here in the Little Heaven Studios in Arnhem. Last Friday I was finishing up my song. It's a brand new song. It's called When I'm With You. It's a song I've written a couple of weeks ago, and I decided to record it immediately, start working on it and finish it as quickly as possible because as you might know, I have an album coming out, and this was such a long process that for new music that I'm created, I just wanted to release it as quickly as possible. So anyway, I was working on that, recording some vocals here in my studio, finishing up the mix. And I was listening to the mix and it sounded fine, but I decided to run it through the SSL Origin console that we have in the big studio downstairs here in the Little Heaven Studios in Arnhem. And I wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I really love the sound of this SSL desk. It's a gorgeous, clean sounding but very pristine sounding desk, especially when you're using the EQs. You can get some really crisp sounding highs. I know these terms are always a little bit vague, but you can open up the sound in a way with this desk in a totally different way that you could with plugins. And I always was a little skeptical about people who are really strict on their favoring of analog equipment. I used to be on forums where engineers would talk about analog versus digital, in the box versus out of the box, out the box, and this was always like sort of a non-discussion for me, because I felt like it doesn't really matter what kind of gear you're using, as long as you are making great music. You can record something on your phone, and if it's a great song, if it's a great performance, it would still be a really good song. It would be a great recording, even though the quality might not be the best as if you were recording it in a professional recording studio. So anyway, I'm kind of changing my perspective on this, and this is because since I'm here in the Little Heaven Studios, I get the privilege of mixing some of my songs and some of my students' songs on the SSL desk, and I'm starting to really appreciate working with analog equipment. And back to the reasons why I was mixing my song on this SSL desk is, well, first of all, as I was mentioning, the EQs. It sounds really gorgeous. You can open up the sound, you can make it really bright and in your face. It has a very direct sound, the SSL, opposed to, for example, a Neve EQ for a 1073, which sounds a lot more smooth and silky in a way. So that was the first reason. And also, what I'm noticing more and more is that this desk, especially when you drive it a little more, adds a lot of character that you simply cannot get with plugins. And I know the plugins nowadays are really good. They're incredibly well emulated, and they sound almost the same as the real deal. And we have some outboard equipment as well here in the studio, and I get to demo that as well, so I can really compare my plugins, which I've been using for years, with the analog equivalents of those plugins, because we have some the LA2A, Distressor, 1176, all those kinds of compressors. We have some Neve preamps, etc., etc., and they sound really similar, but I'm starting to change my perspective on this, because I notice that there is something more than it's sounding great or sounding similar or sounding the same as a plugin versus an analog counterpart. And that is that you have sound, but you also have feel. And those are two completely different aspects of music production. Those are completely different aspects of music. And the way I see it is, and this is going to be sounding a little bit esoteric, but we are all vibration, and music is vibration. Music is just sound waves that are vibrating, and we are our vibration as well. It's all energy. And a hardware unit, like an SSL desk, has a different vibration, a different energy as a plugin in your DAW. It has a completely different vibration. It's a physical object, and that resonates on a different level as a plugin. You might want to think about that for a minute. Hardware units, analog hardware units, have different vibration, a different energy, opposed to digital counterparts. And this is something that I'm starting to notice, because how can it be that you do a mix in the box in your DAW with great sounding plugins? I have the UAD stuff now, I have all the great plugins, and it sounds amazing. But when you run it through an SSL desk, it completely opens up. It's starting to sound wider, it's starting to sound bigger, and it feels completely different. And I believe that's because analog is something that you simply cannot recreate in the digital domain when you're talking about feel, about energy. And not to say that digital is bad or analog is good or whatever. It's a discussion I don't really want to get into, but it's a different beast. It's a different thing, and it has a different energy. That's what I'm getting to. And so this is something that I'm starting to appreciate more and more. The SSL console is a device that you can drive, that you can control, that you can touch with your hands. And in the computer, in Logic, in your DAW, whatever you're using, it's all sort of abstract still, because it's on a screen. You can't physically grab it, and that's what I really appreciate about analog equipment, is that you can grab the knobs, that you can just twist it, that you can turn it without looking, because we get so distracted by looking at the screen, because we have all the more information than you'll ever need available at your fingertips. You have all the metering, the LUFS, the peak metering, the frequency analysis, etc., etc. So we tend to mix with our eyes instead of our ears. And with the console or with physical buttons, you can just twist it, and it might be adding a lot more gain or a lot more highs or lows or whatever than you might do in your DAW, because you can see the number on your screen, and with a physical unit you can look at the numbers, but you don't really have to, because you're listening to what is happening. And this is something that I'm noticing is really beneficial to my music, and I think to a lot of you guys out there as well. And a third thing that I really appreciate about the SSL desk is that you can, and I mentioned this before in this video, is that you can drive it. What I did last Friday when I was mixing my track is I already made the mix in Logic. It was basically finished, but I bounced all the tracks to stems with all the plugins attached to it. And those stems I spread out on the desk. So my guitars all got a separate channel on the desk, vocals, drums, etc., etc. So it was like I'm using the SSL as a really expensive summing mixer, basically. And this is really great about the Origin desk, because you can use the faders, but you can also set it to a 0 dB mode, which deactivates the fader, so you can control the volume in your DAW. Use the EQs if you want to. So I just ran the mix through the SSL desk, added a little bit of EQ here and there, and a little volume changes, because the thing is, when you run something through a desk with transformers and whatnot, it sounds and feels different. So you might want to change the balance of the mix a little bit here and there, and it started to feel completely different. And now I know why major labels, big artists still record and mix on analog consoles, because it gives you a totally different feel. And back to my point is, because I bounced all the stems, some tracks were a little louder, and so I had more input gain going into the console. And this was actually really great, because on some tracks the overload lights started to LEDs started to light up, so I started to overdrive the console a little bit. And you can also do this with the mix output. You can use the SSL mix compressor or not, depending on what you're going for, but you can drive the output of the desk. It has a lot of headroom before it really starts to distort, but this adds harmonic distortion. And yes, you can add harmonic distortion with a lot of plugins, but I'm noticing now that it really sounds different and it feels different, back to my point. So I'm really going to do this a lot more with my stuff. Mixing in the box, getting everything sounding great, and sort of making a pre-mix and running it through the desk to get a final mix and to add my feel. And a final point, something that I really appreciate about this analog mixing, is this particular SSL Origin that we have downstairs. It doesn't have recall. So you dial in your mix, you make it sound as great as possible, and you are forced to make decisions. And this is something that is incredibly important, because in our DAW we have unlimited recalls. You can tweak everything until you're 90 years old, and it still won't be finished. But with analog equipment you have to make decisions. And this is something that we have to learn as music producers, especially with all the tools we have available, is to make decisions. This is something that really values you as a producer, if you are able to make decisions, because the artists you're working with, the clients you're working with, most of the time aren't able to make the best decisions, and you have to make decisions for them. And if you are the artist yourself, you have to make decisions for you. As an executive producer, you have to make the executive decisions. And this is something that you are forced to do when you're working with analog equipment, because you can't recall it. Of course, you can take photos of the settings you had, but it always will be a little different, and it takes a lot of time to set up the desk again the way you had it when you were recording or when you were mixing. So you're forced to make decisions and to make things sound final. Everything you do is you have to treat it as though it's the last thing you're doing with this particular mix. So I spend a lot of time in the studio bouncing out mixes, making instrumental mixes, vocal up, vocal down mixes, tweaking this or that. After a couple of bounces, you have to record the entire mix if you're not familiar with analog mixing, so this takes a while. After a couple of bounces, I found out that there was a mistake in the song, so I had to go back, fix it, and then bounce everything again. So I was there in the studio for more than an hour just bouncing out different versions of the mix. So anyway, I really start to appreciate this mixing in analog, mixing on an SSL desk, and I really would like to do this more. I'm going to run all my mixes through the desk from now on, if it benefits it. And because I want to focus on communicating through a different form of energy. Music is energy, we are energy, we're all vibration, and if mixing through a desk and analog equipment adds something to this energy, enhances the energy, and makes it feel different, then I'm totally down for doing this way instead of just making music on my laptop. Well, anyway, this was a very long rant about my experience mixing my music through this SSL desk. If you're interested in having me mix one of your songs through the SSL desk, just contact me. I'll leave my details down below in the description. You can work with me as a producer. I'm a producer, songwriter, etc. And you can work with me. But you can also learn from me. I offer one-on-one mentoring programs where we work together on your music. So this is really great for you if you are an artist who produces your own stuff. And I can be your co-producer, co-songwriter, co-mixer. I can guide you and coach you through the process of releasing your music, whether that's a single, an EP, or an album. And I can teach you a lot about how to make your song and your music sound really next level. That's what I'm all about. So if you're interested in hearing more details about what this entails, please contact me as well. We can schedule a free call if you like, or you can just send me an email and we'll take it from there. Well, anyway, thank you so much for watching, for listening to this story. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you haven't already. I'm planning on doing more tutorials and stuff like that, but I just wanted to share this with you because I'm really feeling it at the moment. By the way, the song I was talking about, When I'm With You, I'm releasing it in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll see you really soon. Bye!